See, that was really the name of the show. I wasn't kidding. Okay, so I'm Benito Garcia from Go RPG Presents The Most Rad Nerd, and I'm very excited for today's show because we have 5 DMs and one person who isn't. So we're going to have a well-rounded conversation, not one-sided at all, I'm sure. Make sure you guys check out, head over to Synergy Nation Network, where you can see all the really cool podcasts and vlogs. And if there's anything you're interested in, it's definitely on the network. So it's over here. So go check that out. This hopefully will be on there in the next week, I think, this show. So if you're on Twitch, you're lucky because you get to see it a week early. We're going to talk about DM stuff, and we have a player. It's Tingles is on, and he's going to learn all the dirty tricks and all the things that us as DMs do to the players. But we'll go around the horn and we'll introduce everybody. Again, I'm Benito Garcia from Go RPGs, and we'll just go around.
All right. Well, I'm Seth Swanson. I am also with Synergy Nation podcast as part of the Galactic Driftwood podcast. I DM a Pathfinder game, and that's mostly what I've done. But I've also done D&D 3.5, and I am one of Benito's victims.
I have victimized you, haven't I?
Poor Ogrim.
You died a horrible death.
Poor Ogrim.
Poor Ogrim. Lady Ogrim, that's who died.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next we have It's Tingles.
Yeah, it's Tingles. I'm the player.
You're the player. Go player.
Here to learn.
Oh, man.
It's going to be good.
All right, got any social media that you want to plug?
Oh, no.
No?
No.
Nothing to talk about? All right. Well, we can move on to Jake, which you give us the name that's on there because I'm going to screw it up.
It's a balaclava. It's what happens when you combine a balaclava and a baklava together. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it was clever. But yeah, my name is Jake. I've been DMing for 4 to 5 years now. Jason, or It's Tingles, was in my first campaign that I DM'd. So that was a good time.
That's awesome.
I guess, yeah, you can follow me on Twitch if you want with Balaclava. And yeah, we'll be talking about some shenanigans here.
Yeah. Did you do bad things to It's Tingles, or did you take it easy on him?
I, of course, did bad things, but he also did bad things to himself because of bad rolls. So
bad rolls, those suck. All right, cool. Barry.
Hello, Barry Minty Crunch Dunn, also affectionately named by one of our dear friends, Erin, and her dear character, Birdie. Been DMing, I should say, ever since Benito wrote me into it. He gave me an offer, and I just couldn't say no to Ben, so that got me on this terrible addiction and path. My life has never been the same. So in a way, I've been a victim of Ben as well. But it's been a great journey. I love doing it. I do 5D right now. Mostly my stuff is more kind of comedy based and whatnot, and kind of geared towards newer players since I'm a little bit of a newer DM. But I just love learning more and more, and I also love getting around other DMs. And hopefully, It's Tingles is the player today. I'm hoping to pick up some nuggets, and I won't throw too many curveballs at you.
The best part about DMing new players is they don't know when you screw up as the DM. They think that you know exactly what you're doing. Funny. All right. My partner in crime, Ahmnestria, who has been on the show several times, co-hosting with me. I've been extremely lucky to have her on board.
Hello again. I could do I guess Ahmnestria again. I'm Ahmnestria on Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter with the underscore after the name. And I've been DMing for probably 2.5 years now. And maybe not as experienced as the rest of you, but we all have a good time.
Well, I don't know if I'm that experienced. Who's been DMing the longest then? I think probably the longest. We're probably 3-way, 4-way tie at 4 years, 5 years.
Oh, I don't know about that. I actually was DMing back in the early aughts.
Yeah, you did say that you were doing 3.5. 3.5, yeah. So way back in the day, before things got rough with 4th edition, and then came back around to something we could all play and understand. All right, cool. Well, here we go. Let's get started. And then again, we have the comments up. So if anybody is on Twitch watching this and has any questions, for sure, jump on. Don't be afraid to ask. So here we go. I'll start just because it's my show. I'm the DM. Let's just go around the horn again. I kind of like doing it that way. It works well. Why did or what got you started in doing this, Seth?
Well, because at some point when you like playing D&D, no one else is going to DM, and if you want to play D&D, you've got to step up. I mean, for my first game, it was actually because I had a really cool story idea based in Eberron, and then I wrote this big custom campaign that sadly went nowhere. But yeah, that's what got me started. Is I wanted to play D&D, and there was no one to DM, so time to step up and use one of my story ideas.
Well, you said it went nowhere. It went nowhere because you lost players?
Because I had to move to a different city.
I got you.
Yeah,
Shoot.
I lost one job and then had to move to Omaha, where no one was able to play with me anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, it was sad.
That's a terrible story. All right, cool. It's Tingles. How about you? What got you into playing?
That would be Jake, probably. He just asked if I wanted to be part of that campaign, and I jumped in. So
that's cool. What was your character?
I was a barbarian dwarf named Goliath.
Goliath? That's cool. Yeah, that's a Seth. Played a barbarian for a while. For a little while.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, barbarian's fun. I have another friend, Pice, who played a barbarian. I'm always jealous. I've never played one, but when I watch people play a barbarian, it just looks like so much fun.
Yeah, it was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. Like, I thought it was just going to be going around hitting things, but it actually kind of freed me up to do a little bit of role play and like flesh out my character.
Yeah.
Awesome. What level did you make it to? It's Tingles.
I think we started at 5 and made it to 8, maybe 9.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That seemed. A lot of people start at 5. If you're gonna even just doing one-offs, seem to take off at 5. It's kind of that in between ground for sure. Cool. Jake, how about you? What got you started as a DM?
The same thing as Seth. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of DMs experience that, where they play D&D at some point, and then something happens, and well, nobody knows how to DM. So they're like, oh, fine, I guess I'll DM. And yeah, that's what happened with the campaign that Jason was in, and going forward.
That's cool. Awesome. Barry.
Well, going to reiterate the point of so somebody gave me an offer and I didn't want to say no. It was he's this pretty rad nerd guy who was just like, hey, we're doing a comedy campaign, and we, do you want to be a DM? And it was really actually in a lot of ways kind of funny how fate had kind of stepped in and not really forced it, but the timing was great because DM was something I was always considered doing. Because I used to do improv and write skit comedy, and I really didn't have a creative outlet, but I was always just kind of, it was one of those things, unfortunately, you just get too scared and you're like, oh, nobody's going to like your stuff or whatnot. So then when you asked me, Ben, it kind of hit it at the right point. I was like, well, everything seems to come together. Why not give this thing a shot? What's the worst thing that can happen besides your friends ridicule you for the rest of your life? But they do that anyway, so really in the same boat. So
right, and then we recorded it and just put it out there everywhere, so everybody could ridicule you. It was perfect timing because with your improv stuff that you were doing, it fit perfect with a lighthearted comedy Dungeons and Dragons game. It was great voices, and if we thought we were throwing you a curveball, we got this great, really funny interaction that came back our way. It was we did we were on a space, like Barry ran with it. We were in all kinds of weird places. We were in the Maury Povich show. We were on a spaceship with the captain that sounded like Captain Kirk. We dealt with My Little Ponies, and it was the craziest LSD trip of D&D that you could think of, and it was great maps and great stories. It was so fun. Then COVID hit and we just got completely shut down, and really nobody felt like wanting to come together and play in person. And so, but now Barry's going to DM again pretty soon here so that I can play. Cool. Ahmnestria, how about you?
So my origin story is way different. It's not. So the DM that I had work come up and we had to stop playing. And I was like, man, I really want to play. I don't want to stop. And everybody's like, well, I don't know. And I was like, fine. You know what? I'll do it. I'll take the reins. And we had an epic adventure. We chased an old man through a forest. We fought some dragons. One of the people ended up sleeping with another dragon. And don't worry, they had a baby. That was a cat.
Oh, I'm not worried.
It was a cat. And yeah, no, it was a good adventure. And then I'm about to DM another campaign for Tingles and Jake.
Awesome. I tuned into your Twitch last night. I saw you, Jake, and It's Tingles. Were you on there also?
No, neither one of them were in last night.
Oh, I thought I saw Jake was in there. Nope.
There's someone that kind of looks like him in there, which I don't know if you're watching, but there was some.
Well, and the picture was only this big on the screen, so sorry, Jake.
Oh,
there was live twerking last night on my campaign because the bard was trying to perform at a bar.
Was he a tumbler? Was that his thing?
He so his bed's behind him. He got on his bed and was just going. Okay. It was impressive.
It was impressive. Nice. And it was recorded, right? So we can all check it out.
You guys can all check it out.
That's cool. So I started DMing because we did a campaign when we first played. There was 9 of us, and it was just too many people.
Wow.
It was taking forever to get anything done, and the DM, nice enough to DM for 9 people, but there was a huge falling out with him and the group, and knowing that was coming, that he wasn't going to be DMing for us anymore. I really wanted to do Ravenloft. I really was excited to run everybody through that. And so once we were done with that DM, I did Ravenloft and took everybody through that. And then it's just gone on since. I haven't got to play in 2.5 years, maybe. So that's when I talked to Barry, who's in I have a game every other week with 2 different groups. And so I talked to Barry and just said, hey, can you just do like a 1 or 2 session or something? I got this wizard I really, really want to play. I'm excited to do some Tabaxi, stuff. I had a couple of players who played they played great Tabaxis. And so I thought that looked like fun. And so, yeah, Barry agreed to it. And I finally get to play whenever he's not curing bacon and smoking meat.
Are you going to stream that?
I'm stoked. What's that?
Are you going to stream it?
Stream the one with Barry?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Didn't really think about look at Barry's face. I didn't really think about that. I don't know. Guess we'll figure that out.
I'll suffer for your art.
You'll suffer for my art. Whatever. Funny. All right. I have a whole list of questions, so I don't want to hog up the whole show. Has anybody else got any questions or anything they were going to come to the table with DM wise, or have a question for anybody in the group?
I have one, but I'm going to wait a little bit.
Oh, sure.
Right,
go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna wait till we're into some stuff first.
Okay.
Throw
I
you
guess
guys for a loop.
Well,
All right,
speaking of loops, throwing things for a loop, I was going to ask you, what was the most memorable thing that your players threw you for a loop for?
Me?
Everybody.
Everybody.
You wanna go around the horn?
And
We'll keep going around the horn?
for its tingles, you can have you ever thrown your DM a loop?
Oh.
You'd have to answer that, I guess.
Did you ever
I think
consciously?
I did. I mean, I never died, and I got the feeling that's what he wanted. So,
All right, Jake, what did he do?
See, I don't have something for him specific though. If we wanted to go on that campaign, I can give a little bit of a story. So, do you guys care about spoilers or anything for certain modules? I mean, it's like an 8-year-old module, so
Nah.
So is Out of the Abyss, and there is a character that started with you when you're imprisoned, and he was kind of psychotic, and eventually he will try to kill the party. But for some reason, when you defeat him, he had this little like piece of flesh that said "Worship me," and like it said "Worship Bupido." And for whatever reason, Jason and the party decided, you know what, we're going to get people to worship Bupido, and from that, they've essentially made a cult around him. Once they got out of the abyss, and I know you're talking about your LCD trip of traveling around. I kind of did the same thing with that forest, and I just threw every possible fiction reference I could at the party, and it ended up being that Smokey the Bear ended up beating the crap out of Red Riding Hood for burning down a house in his forest, and then they turned him into the cult leader, which actually went into a side campaign that I then ran on the side of the main one, where the players were the evil characters in the cult, and I was going to have them come together at some point, but then things kind of fell apart. But yeah, it was. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, right.
Tingles, you started a cult?
oh yeah, it's just what I do.
That's cool. All right, I'll do one real quick. It's when we were running Curse of Strahd, and we were in the castle, and right away, this is supposed to be a horror, themed campaign, and so you're supposed to set the mood with it being spooky and dark and all these scary things happening. And right away, as soon as they got into the castle, really one of the first things I wanted them to run into was a sphere of annihilation. And so I had it in a really small, like a chest, like a treasure chest. And as you looked, if you opened the lid and looked inside, and of course I made it hard to get into, making it more, like, oh, we got to get in here. It's locked and blah, blah, blah. And so when they opened it, there was a handwritten note that you could barely read and a red ruby. And I knew somebody would reach their hand in there to grab this thing, because that's, you set it up that way. That's what they're going to do. I got it in my mind. And when they reached in there and they couldn't feel it and they pulled their arm out, half their arm would be gone. And I just thought, that's how it's going to go. So anyway, so they open the lid, and one of my players picks up the chest and starts to shake it and move it to jostle the stuff in it around. Well, it didn't move. It didn't jostle at all because it was an illusion. So out of the blue, I don't know why or where this came from, the character said, well, they set the box down, and the character says, I jump in the box. So he jumps in the box and he's gone. And this is day one of the campaign. Gone. So I have another player. Her name was Christina. Christina goes, I walk over and look in the chest. She's like, do I see him? And I said, no. And she goes, well, I jump in the box. So I lose 2 players to a sphere of annihilation immediately. So then it turned out that it wasn't a sphere of annihilation. It was just a void. And then so we spent an hour of them in darkness in another dimension trying to find each other, and the people outside of the box trying to fish them out with a rope. And yeah, that was my where the party gave me a left turn.
Why didn't you just hand them new character sheets? Like, okay, here you go. You jumped in the box.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, they came in just to... These 2 players weren't playing before in the 9-person group. They came in just to play Ravenloft. And so they were all excited and took all that time to build their characters and, make their backstories, and excited to play D&D for the first time. And that's what they did.
Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty disheartening to just flat out die in the very opening of the campaign.
Day one. Funny. All right, who's next?
I'll go. Have you ever set up? It's not so much gonna kill the party, but you ever set up like a really fun, just annoying trap that they're gonna have to deal with all the time? And so mine was they were in a forest where it was basically a bunch of carnivorous plants, and these plants were all up on the tree canopies, and you couldn't really see them among the foliage, but they would randomly jump down and like try to eat a party member. But it was like a damage over time. They definitely had a lot of time to get out or whatever. So they do that, and everybody actually succeeds on their dexterity except the horse. So it actually grabs the horse, and so their horse that was actually a talking horse.
Oh no!
So the horse is like screaming in the thing, and so they end up saving the horse. The horse's name is Ed, also. So they end up saving Ed.
Of course, it's Ed. Yeah,
Mr. Ed.
And they were like, "Wow, that was really inconvenient." And they're like, "Do we see any more of these?" I was like, "Yeah, they're a natural plant in this forest. You're probably gonna encounter more." And then they're like, "All right, we're gonna burn down the forest." And I'm like, "Oh no!"
Jesus.
So they burnt down the forest, and then they decided to just make camp and let it burn overnight. So we ended the session there. I made my maps because this was online. I made my maps. So I had to go through and I just did a map. I remade it. It was the same map, but I just had all the trees burnt. So they come back. I was like, all right, this is what you wake up to. And they're like, wow, this map is really good. I was like, you guys made me make a new map.
Good for you for letting them burn down the forest, though.
It turned out that later there was a god of storms that was not happy about them burning down a forest. The fire ended up did get put out by a storm, but it did burn like 70% of the forest.
Oh man, see that good for you, because I might have been no matter how hard you try to burn down the forest. 2 weeks worth of storms have rolled through and dumped a ton of rain, and it's just too wet and it won't light, because I'd be pissed off that I made all those maps. I would have to redo it. So good for you for letting them have it. All right, who's next?
I flooded them out later because there was no more trees to hold the soil.
I think I'm the last one, and
Seth's got to go still too.
Oh, sorry. No, go, Seth. I'm go.
Are you sure? Like, you can go first.
I'll let you choose whatever you want to do.
Okay. Well,
nice.
So I DM for a group of 6 people, which is a little bit large. So occasionally getting them to I play for modules. I try not to railroad them, but occasionally getting them to go to the next spot is like herding cats. And so we are a couple years into the campaign at this point, just because we play slow once a month or so. And I'm setting up this kind of murder mystery for them where they are supposed to be hunting down a serial killer. Sorry.
Hardcore.
Yeah, that's my cats. Speaking of herding cats. Anyway, I'm setting up a murder mystery. They're supposed to be finding this serial killer who's been murdering children in the streets for a couple weeks, and I'm giving them hints, and out of nowhere they remember something I said in the very first session. The evil lord of the city laid out his 7 rules for being in the city, one of which was just like throwaway flavor text. He forbade the selling of mint in the city because he found the smell offensive. And so instead of tracking down this very obvious hint that I left them, they all decided that they were going to go to the docks and buy mint seeds because they were going to research and figure out how to make alchemical mint bombs and fill the city with mint just to fuck with the lord of the city. And I was like, oh, I don't believe in telling them they can't do things, so I just played along, and now these mint bombs are a part of my game and a part of the lore of the city, and every free growing space in the city that they're trying to save is now canonically choked with mint.
Yeah, how funny. All right, Barry, best for last.
Oh gosh, I don't know if it will compare to mint bombs or deforestation by fire or starting a cult. But one thing is like when you play with different people in different age groups, they'll definitely surprise you. One of the groups, we had a 17-year-old playing with us, and he chose a barbarian class, did some very interesting choices with it. He called it his Bob Ross barbarian. It was a barbarian that likes to paint with his axe. And he was going on about, it was a dragonborn character, and he kept going on about like, hell, you never do anything for my backstory. You never do anything about his backstory. And his backstory was he was from this mountain village. It was destroyed by this giant dragon. He believes he lost his family. So I create this antagonist, and they go back and forth, and he's chiding him and all that kind of stuff. And finally it gets to the point to where, he gets to deal the blow at the antagonist, but I wanted this antagonist to be a reoccurring character and keep coming back, kind of like a Moriarty type, no matter what, it kind of comes through. And so the antagonist says, I have your family captive, and gives him his mother's name, and says, I have her, blah, 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 but you've got to let me go. And so I'm thinking, like, finally, hey, we get to delve more in this background. And he's just like, nah, and chops his head off. Not what I was planning. Now I was thinking, hey, we got some more. This gives me a bunch of story arcs we can go through. You can have the thing where you got to take the guy hostage along with you, and you have to have that annoying prisoner. You got to keep him alive because no, he just decided to kill him. And I was just like, afterwards, I was like, so what about your character's mom? And he's like, he's been living without her for so long already. And it's just like,
oh man.
Okay, I guess just take these notes I made and just burn them, I guess. So
all this research that I did. Yeah, I mean, and it happens every game. Like, I don't think I've ever played a game where it didn't go take a left, even if it might be a small deviation, but God, you can set it up when Seth, like you said, you don't want to railroad your players, but you put these things in front of them. That's a path that's going to take them exactly where you've set this encounter or this thing to happen. And it doesn't matter. Somehow they find a way to not do it.
Occasionally some asshole's going to roll a 100 on their D100 and get a wish spell, right?
Right. I didn't see that coming. I had 100 scenarios set up for that. So the guy got the wish spell, and if he rolled a 100 on the 100-sided die, he gets the wish spell. I think that's what it was, actually. And he rolled a 100. It rolled around forever because those 100-sided dice are just like a ball. It took forever. When it finally stopped on 100, and he got the wish spell, completely shut down the campaign that we were in because he wished to be somewhere else. And it was Tomb of Annihilation. They had one level left to finish the campaign. It was literally, they had to go down a set of stairs, and they were at the last level, and we were going to finish it out. Probably take us, probably a month or so to finish that up. But how long had you guys been playing that, Seth? For months and months and months.
Years at that point. Like, at least a year we'd been in the
At
Annihilation.
least. And the player wished to be on top of a volcano somewhere else. So when I tell the story about the Sphere of Annihilation, I should tell the story of the Tomb of Annihilation and how my game got shut down.
I gave my characters a child that was very important to the story, and their response was to yeet it into the sky. Like, I kept dropping hints This was a very powerful child. They had saved her from kidnappers, and they never really asked why she was kidnapped. They just saved her, and they're like, okay, well, we saved you. Here's a griffin that you can ride on. Bye. And I was like, well, she's really scared. She doesn't want to go by herself. And they're like, okay, we'll spend 3 days with her. So I spent 3 days trying to get the party to love this child so they wouldn't yeet it into the sky. They yeeted it into the sky. And I was like,
Shit. Oh, that's so funny. All righty. Anybody got anything? Let's keep the ball rolling. We're doing good.
I have a question for everybody.
All right. I'm ready.
All right. Who's your
Is this the big
favorite?
one you were saving?
No, this is the smaller
Oh,
one.
okay.
Who is your favorite reoccurring NPC?
Got that one. You got one, Barry?
I got a couple from our D&D Just for Laughs campaign. I think hands down it was Superfly Jimmy Snacks.
Superfly Jimmy Snacks.
I need to know about Superfly Jimmy Snacks.
So I did this scenario where they get involved with something called the Fighting Ultimate Club or something like that.
Something like that.
And so I based it off of the WWE. Well, the WWE used to be the WWF when I was younger, but the World Wildlife Federation was like, hey, no, that's us. And they sued them and won. But an old WWF wrestler, one of the guys I loved, his name was Superfly Jimmy Snuka. So I created Superfly Jimmy Snacks. Now, the thing with Superfly Jimmy Snacks is every time he got hit, snacks would fly out into the crowd. So every time the players hit him, I would throw treats at him. And so he became vastly popular. So they would start targeting him, and they'd be like, "Hey, look, I want to hit him." They would roll. I think it was like Mo and Mikey would roll, and they'd be like, "Okay, well, can I roll but not hit him, but just like hit him hard enough to where we don't kill him, so we can still get a snack?" And so that was a vastly popular character.
That's funny. It's Tingles. How about you as a player?
So we had came across we were in the Underdark. We came across a cottage with an old lady inside, but one of our party members, our paladin, it was a mind flayer, like disguised as, or like taking on an old lady. He recognized that, so he was like terrified, but the rest of us didn't know. So we were just like, oh, this is nice. And they was always offering us food and like shelter, and they actually resurrected our friend who had just died like an hour before that. And then so on through, like every time we had an interaction, she'd disappear and then she'd pop up somewhere else. And it was always funny.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah.
So it was a mind flayer that had swallowed a hag coven. So she thought she was a hag.
Yeah.
And they might have gotten stuff from this person, but she never really accepted normal currency. Like the resurrection he just mentioned, they had 2 NPCs that they had along with them that they like sacrificed, and then everybody had to roll for like a madness check to get them back. So there was always a big cost to what
Why
you got
did you
from her.
conveniently leave out that you sacrificed people?
It was a while ago. It was like 3 years ago.
I know it was a charming little story of the mind.
Yeah, it was charming, and now that I
Yeah,
learned that
yeah.
he sacrificed innocent people.
It got dark
I
fast.
don't think anybody had quarrels with that except for the paladin. So
The
He was
paladin
all
let
good.
you?
not really.
Was he the one dead? Maybe?
He was having a mental break, and that's when he turned
Yeah.
Oathbreaker Paladin. So
Yeah, with Breaker. How fun. Okay, Seth, you got one?
I got one. So my group is pretty much everyone in the group likes watching anime. So this kind of goes to how my group acquired a mascot. There was a bit in the early campaign where they had to go and investigate strange happenings in a bar, and they found out that it was being caused by a little fey dragon a fairy dragon that they then rescued from this bar and found out that its name was Vendelfek. And he became their team mascot and was always around the base of their rebellion hideout. He was a mischievous character. I painted him a mini, and they got to interact with him every now and again. But it quickly became established in the lore of the game that they could get him to do things by giving him treats. At a later point in the game, they found a sweets shop and started bribing the dragon Vendelfek to do any number of things for them. And it quickly went to the point where everyone just thought that all they had to do was bribe Vendelfek with some treats, and he would go and do an investigation for them, and he usually would, but it became so much that Vendelfek started gaining weight. And eventually progressed to the point where he got type 1 diabetes because all he was eating were cakes as large as himself. At this point, Vendelfek is attempting to lose some weight to accomplish some of the missions that he has not been able to accomplish because he can no longer fly under his own power.
I love that you're perpetuating this story that far.
I told you, I let my I don't like telling my players, no, you can't do this. I always look for a reason to say yes.
I'm with you 100%. Ahmnestria, you got to have one. And I'm going to grab my mini while you're talking. I'll show you mine. Go ahead.
I kind of had talked about this one a little bit in a previous podcast, but it's not a very original name, but Boblin the Goblin. He was at first, he looked like a shady person. He was walking on the road. He had a black cloak and a huge backpack. And he was walking along, and the party runs into him. And, he kind of had the voice of, I don't know if you guys ever played Resident Evil 4. But the merchant, where he's always like, welcome, So he has that voice. And he always laughed at the party. And he had kooky, wacky, and magical items. Hold on. I remember him. He didn't want to give me free stuff. He did not want to give you free stuff, Bam. You can't seduce him either. Anyway, so yeah, one of my players is in chat right now. So he always had wacky, fun items that I would find on Reddit or something that they weren't exactly helpful, but I thought they were just fun enough to put in my campaign. But it was a wandering merchant, and he would appear randomly whenever I felt like they deserved some items if they had been good.
That sounds fun.
Anyway, so the first time they interact with him, they buy some items, and he only accepted gold. He didn't accept trades, and this was also a way to kind of get gold off the players. So, but they didn't have all this gold when they went into towns, and because his stuff was expensive. Anyway, so they bought a bunch of stuff, and they were discussing about killing Boblin and taking their gold back. And I was like, you can't kill Boblin. I put all this effort into giving him a voice and everything. So I was like, okay, so as you guys are kind of discussing amongst yourselves, how you're gonna kill Boblin, he pulls out a knife and he slits his own throat, and he is and all this blood sprays into your eyes, and he falls backwards into a black cloud of smoke, and he's gone. And they were like, oh, maybe we don't want to mess with that guy. He just killed himself. And then, so they met him again later, and they were like, Boblin. And he's like, hello, friends, And then, they did their stuff. They're like, how come you killed yourself last time? And he never acknowledged that he had killed himself. He seemed confused. He didn't seem to remember killing himself, but he killed himself after every interaction.
No.
And one time, the person that's in my chat right now tried to seduce him, and he was sitting up on a rock. It was a hot day out, and he was trying to seduce him, and he didn't roll well. Damn, this was also your fault. You didn't roll well. Anyway, so Baba, and he's like looking at him, and he looks up at the sky. He's like, "Oh, it's getting hot in here," and then he just burst into flames and like. And he was gone, and so the party was a little bummed because he was right out of the gate trying to seduce him, so they didn't get to buy anything that time. But
Oh man.
so they always looked forward to finding the little goblin with the backpack.
So he's still around though?
Oh yeah, he's still every time he dies, he's just back.
I love it. All right, this is mine. I'm going to turn on my ring light here, so hold on just a second. It's going to be super bright. Keep talking. Dead air.
Oh, okay.
What was the question? I think I got disconnected while that was being said.
Your favorite NPC.
Yeah, your favorite NPC reoccurring.
Reoccurring. Yeah.
Reoccurring, yes.
Did you make one that you liked?
Well, I mean, I already talked about it with the. I forgot her name. It was the old lady, but she
I don't
also
even- I don't
stole
remember
things
her
that
Well,
didn't
I
work
mean,
great.
you kind of like just added to his. And
Right,
there was
right.
Another one.
But
I
would
felt like
say
I
that's
was
probably
stealing
it.
it.
No, that was probably my favorite.
It was
I
a good
have.
one.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
That
no.
was it.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
got
go for it.
another one. Once again, early on in the campaign, once again, I let my players at least attempt to do what they want. So at one point, my fighter, they're going through one of the big dungeons at the end of a section of the module they're playing, and he's like, "Can I just throw this guy's body at these other guys?" And I was like, "Yeah, the strength check is going to be really high, but you can try." And so, of course, he rolls a nat 20 on it. So what am I going to do but let him huck the body at a bunch of the bad guys like it's a projectile? And it works fantastically. And I just offhandedly, I was like, well, there you go. You killed Gary, and now you used his body as a weapon. And ever since, Gary keeps coming up in conversation. He's never actually come back, but everyone will always reference Gary. And one of my favorite quotes that my dwarf monk has said is, in the middle of a fight, he's really angry at someone, they're close to losing, and he just shouts out, "Why can't you be more like Gary?" Dead.
Oh, dead.
And at some point, I am going to bring Gary back as some sort of powerful undead, just to screw with them all.
Watch them just throw Gary anyway.
Yeah, it's probably going to happen, but...
That's funny. Jake, you said you had one?
No. It was
okay.
what Jason was talking about.
All right, I'm going to try it. Okay, so here is the mini. I'm going to bear with me.
Oh.
One more, I think.
Oh, look at that guy.
Cool.
This is Barty. Got a nice tush. Anyway,
You look like a very respectable businessman.
right?
Look
So
at that distinguished gentleman.
right? So the thing, it was the tavern, and everybody walks into the tavern, and I said, and I saw this mini, and so I had to print it because it was so rad. And of course, they walk in and they started to talk to the bartender, and just like every other time, I suck. I literally suck at coming up with quick improv names for NPCs. I don't know why I don't think about it ahead of time. But in this particular case, they're like, "Hey, partner, what's your name?" And I was like, Barty. And so now this is Barty, the tavern guy. But I use him in every single campaign and every single game. No matter what town they're in or what village they go to, they run into the same guy, Barty. And it's always, they walk in and he's like, "Oh, it's great to see you guys. Like, been a while." So yeah. Every town. It doesn't matter if they traveled 500 miles or one end of the planet to the other. It's always Barty's always there to greet him at the tavern.
Your Barty's kind of like my Edna.
You're Edna.
The half orc lady with she's got a very feminine face, like huge boobs. A voice like the ugly stepsister from Shrek.
That's a great segue. That's a great segue. I wanted to talk about voices. So we should start with you, and you should give us your.
You want to hear my Edna?
Yes.
Well, so this the backstory on Edna a little bit is her voice and personality is actually based off of a person that I knew in real life. Her name was Shirley, though, and she used to work with my brother, and I think she just smoked heavily. Very sweet old lady. She called everybody sweetie and honey, and she was always kind of a little flirty. So this has transpired into Edna, who's my half-orc lady, and so like Edna's always like, she's behind the bar, and she's always like, "Oh, what can I get you, sweeties?" You know, like.
I love it. I love
And
it.
she's very flirtatious. I actually had one player roll to sleep with her, but they failed their con save, so they were missing HP the next day, and they owed her a new bed because she broke it.
That's great. Oh man, I don't know what he's talking about here. That looks amazing. I'm not sure what he's talking about.
It might be delayed just on your figure.
Oh, my figure. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so that's a good one. Seth, I know you got really good voices.
I can't wait to hear everyone's voices.
Oh,
I'm excited
man.
for this. Come on.
Unfortunately, like I have such a hard time coming up with voices in game when I'm DMing. Like when I'm playing a character, I've got plenty of time to work on a voice. But when I'm DMing, there's just so many characters. It's so hard to keep whose voice is what straight. So, right. I mean, I've got some standard accents that I'll go to, the snooty British accent and whatnot. But, like, in-game, it's really hard. But I guess I do try and give characters different voices. I guess I have a harder time when they aren't... if they're just one-offs, I've got a hard time. But if it's a recurring character, they'll have a voice, like Rexus Victicora, who's been a recurring character since the very first session. He's kind of a posh guy, and he's a lot more. Well, you really need to go here and do this sort of thing. So, like the recurring characters are easy. Coming up with voices for one-offs is just really hard.
Right. My voices they start out as one thing and then they all end as sounding like the same. Everybody sounds the same at the end. I really struggle with doing female voices.
Edna was originally supposed to just be a one-off character, but she was so well loved.
Yeah, she stuck
I have
around.
to keep doing her, and I have a sore throat like the next day every time I play her.
Well, let's real quick because I want to go around and get everybody's. But Seth, we got to hear Ogram, and then I want to hear Lady Ogram.
Oh God, you're gonna
do this for me. I need this.
Okay, so
Ogram was his barbarian.
Yeah, a little backstory. Ogram, I was playing Ogram the Barbarian, originally Dude Ogram, for the longest time, and then in the middle of the dungeon, sorry, Benito, the name of the dungeon, the Tomb of Horrors.
Oh, the Tomb of Annihilation, yeah,
the Tomb of Annihilation. He finds a fountain in the Tomb of Annihilation and just decides to drink from it because he's a low-end barbarian and he's gonna do it. So, originally, like, I didn't want to do Ogram as the stereotypical Scottish dwarf, so I was like, okay, I will do a Russian dwarf. Ogram has accent like this. He likes to hit things, and he likes to fight. He likes to do that. So, and I've been working on that for so long. But he drinks from the stupid fountain, changes genders, and then I decided that guess what? Ogram kind of liked that. Ogram found who she really was the whole time. And like like they immediately insisted that I do a female voice for Ogrim, and I'm like, oh god, I've never done I've never tried to do that for a character before, and so I'm just trying to kind of modulate my voice, like soften it just a little bit, so like Ogrim talks like this. A female Ogrim kind of talks like this. Kind of has to maintain the still tough barbarian, but still has to sound kind of a bit softer, a little bit different. Still deep, but
what's funny about Ogrim and Lady Ogrim was after he got turned into Lady Ogrim for a short amount of time, for a short amount of time, one of the other players had the ability to, it wasn't a wish spell, but it was something to that effect, and wished Lady Ogrim to go back to being regular Ogrim, thinking that this player was doing Seth a favor. And literally just as soon as that happened, Seth's character Ogrim ran all the way back to the fountain and kept drinking out of it and all these things, because it was a random dice roll, and just kept drinking out of it until finally he got back to being Lady Ogrim again, and then he comes back to
nearly killed Ogrim a second time trying to get Ogrim back to being a woman.
It's so great. How funny. How about you, Jake? How are you at voices? Do you like doing that?
Oh god. So for my entire first campaign, I had an issue. So I have a little bit of background in Russian language, so all my accents that I would do would somehow devolve into Russian.
Right.
So my new campaign that I'm doing, I haven't actually picked anybody with a Russian accent for a while, just because I'm trying to branch out.
Right.
But yeah, let's see. I guess I can just throw a couple out there. I do a decent Russian accent. I could do a pretty easy country accent, and I have a nice, really deep, flamboyant guy voice, and
I want to hear that one.
I'll just do all of them real quick.
Okay.
Well, just right off the bat, I can just tell you have the silky smooth streamer seductive voice right now. I mean, you're still your normal talking voice.
I'll make sure to give
Very
you the full sample. So
I'm just saying, if you had an audio tape, I'd get it. I'm just,
If you're reading a book, Barry'd be right on it.
So yeah, здравствуйте, как дела? And I just had to speak a little bit of Russian to get into this. I need to speak a little bit of Russian to get into the how you speak like that, yeah?
Nice.
That is amazing. That is really good. I mean,
That is good.
And then you just got to start drawing out your words, I played this frog character. He was about 1 year old, and I had another party of about 3 people. They were all much older than me, but I thought they were my children, and that's how I played that character. Oh,
nice.
I love
I'm
it.
ready. I'm ready for this last one.
Yeah, the seductive one.
I'm excited
I haven't done
about
that one
it.
in a minute.
Yeah, this will be good.
Oh fuck! Now I'm on the spot. That's.
It's hard to change.
It is.
It's really hard
It
to
is.
change. Like when you're used to, you're doing one, it's hard to get to the other.
Oh, I'm trying to think of a line to say seductively. So he was a bit of a noble, as you can call him. He liked his escorts, and the party was out trying to find one of them that was kidnapped. And did they find him?
Oh yeah.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
There's some Barry White playing someplace, I'm telling you.
Right? We're saving, and actually, I'm going to save Barry for last because Barry's probably got about 6 billion. It's Tingles. Let's hear your barbarian.
I honestly didn't really commit to any specific voice for that one.
Yeah.
But when we start this next campaign, I'm probably going to put a little more into my character. But I can attest that Jake was really good at the voices.
Yeah.
He kept it
Nice.
fresh.
Very good. Very good.
It's a huge thing when your dungeon master can do that. I've played with other dungeon masters that I feel bad when I do them because they all kind of sound the same. I'm just this goofy kind of upbeat, kind of whatever, and it's really hard to play a villain or something that's got a really deep growly voice.
Oh, but
Pirates.
Benito, you do such a good villain though.
Yeah, you do. That's the thing it's like don't get hung up on the voices, because the experience that I have being one of your players is the way you play them. And so it's never a boring thing.
Usually,
Like, maybe I
you're
could've made
having
that
fun,
because-
they're having fun.
Yeah,
Right.
because you could have the best voice in the world, but if you just if you're not fun to play with, or you're just not, what you bring to the table is like what I really enjoy. I mean, like every other Wednesday, I'm like, can't wait to get out of the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, I just love laughing at all the stuff that you guys do. It just cracks me up. But when you're in the moment, and you've got this, and you've got an NPC, it seems easier to do it in the moment. Like, all of you guys being put on the spot, I feel your pain. It's just like I'm good at a pirate, and I'm good at this and that. But girl voices are the death of me. Literally the
I'm
death
good
of
at
me.
those.
So
Well, I hope so.
something that's actually helped me with that is I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And
Mhm.
so a lot of audiobook authors, like if you're listening to one that's read by a male author, they will do the female voices. And that'll give you a good kind of way to do it without being, oh, I'm a female in your campaign and this is how I talk.
I actually like that
I don't
voice,
quite get that
though.
Well, like
How funny.
what I wanted to bring up though is that I had Benito actually guest in my campaign as the main villain, and he did such an excellent job.
That was a good time. That was fun. I was given a speech to the town or something. Is that what it was? And your players had showed up?
Yep.
Yeah, that was
You were awarding the characters basically an award for their service to the city while being underhanded and a little bit shitty about it.
right.
Giving them trapped items.
Well, I do the best I can. So, but Barry, on the other hand, man, he nails. He's got so many. It's got to be that comedy background, improv.
Now I'm on the spot, and I got to think on stage.
Do your Captain Kirk. That's one of my favorites.
Oh, God, the Captain Kirk, of course, I'm on the spot. Well, the thing with doing Shatner is you really got to think about their accents that come along with the Kirk. It's drama and pauses, and then and that's Kirk, man.
He was so off the chain the night that he pulled out. That's like what you just heard. Take that times 1,000.
Yeah, because it's like, in all fairness to campaigns, is like, if I know what I'm doing, I get a chance to prepare. Because if we're talking like my main character Ruby, that's like he's a good guy. He's correct, he's always trying to take care of the group, but you got that shite head rolling, all right, because he's like always doing something that's for gold. It's not the best. It's just, good lad, though. Not really, because he's kind of borderline evil. But, and that's Ruby. That's my main character from Ben's campaign. But from my other campaigns.
And when you're drunk, it's even funnier.
Yeah.
I've got to really pay very close attention to what he's saying to understand.
Because when you're drunk, you go, oh, you're Scottish. It's, ooh. And sometimes it's up in the higher edges to season doubles. And so it's one of those things. And then for the other campaign, we have a shop owner his name is Nick, but he has a store called Nick Snacks.
Of course he does.
And of course, he's the world-bound traveler from all across the world. I do say, like down under. And it's like, I do say, boy, Chops, what are you looking for today? What are you looking for? A bag of holding? I've got it. But then the problem is the Australian kind of bleeds over into the I wind up going back to the Scottish. But then there's other characters like it's actually another recurring character. So we have an ogre named Todd who's basically a child, and Todd has these mannerisms of like a very like Todd. I can't do it because like my throat's, but it's like, but Todd's up here and he's like, I'm 8. I took my it took me the thing and then dropped it, and he's not moving. Referring to his club.
Right.
And then the last one is usually kind of like the very high up on the guy. His name's Avelios. He's high up and whatnot, and he's the head of the town. All right, and darn, oh my God, and like I tell you, do the bakalava Jake there that choose. Avelius would find that voice very yes. You'd have to come up to the man, spend the night, and just say nothing into his ears.
Oh, behave.
Ooh, me? You know, Avelius don't behave, darling. No. You're not going to be a man like me by the heaven. You know what I mean? Ooh, look what the right hands are. Woo. Okay, bye-bye.
I say, that is a very good accent. I enjoy that very much.
Well,
Yes.
thank you, darling. You can come to the mansion, too.
Oh, I'd love that.
All right.
That would simply be delightful. Oh.
What is happening?
All right. Well, half of us apparently have been seduced.
Yep.
I blame Jake personally, so.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jake. All right.
Anytime.
I'm
Does
still
anybody-
waiting for Benino to do a voice for me.
I don't know. Like, I do them on the spot, like, or like when it comes up. I can't even think of one. That's ridiculous.
What about your villain?
Your pirate,
I don't know.
Ben by
Depends on
far,
who-
your pirates. I
Who
love
my
your
villain
pirates.
was, but it's usually
Or your
just
pirate?
actually when I played my paladin, it was very dun, 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 like I'm going to jump off of this rock and do a backflip, and then as I'm flying through the air, I'm going to pull out what was it called, the judge. I pull out the judge, my gigantic sword, and it was very like I'm here to save the day type of thing. So just I don't know, just goofy stuff like that. I really better when I have to do it for the group. Being put on the spot, you guys are killing me. So let's move on because it's my show.
I could be my senile old lady.
Yeah, I have done a few of those. All right. So does anybody have anything before we move on to the next question I have? Ahmnestria. What is it? Ahmnestria. What does it always say? Mistress of the Dark.
Yeah, something like that.
All right. Did you want to bring up your question yet, or does anybody else have one while she's... Are we going to hear the question yet? Because I got a bunch. We got about another hour.
I'll go after her.
Oh, am I asking the next one?
Well, only if you're ready. I don't want to push your question if you're not ready to ask it yet.
No, do one of yours.
All right, Jake, go ahead.
See, mine's not as fun though. I'm honestly just kind of curious as you're all DMs. Well, sorry, Jason, but maybe in the future, maybe I can convince you. What software do you guys use for like maps and etc.? Or do you guys use like World Anvil or anything like that?
Great question.
I use Incarnate when I make maps.
I
You can
use it as
upload
well.
a bunch of your own stuff in there.
Yeah, I use the same one. Incarnate. What's the new one that just came out with all the 3D Dungeon Anarchist? I use that one. That one's really good. That was a Kickstarter. Did you get on that, Seth?
Oh yeah, I haven't actually used it.
I
myself.
saw the Kickstarter for that. I was actually
it's
super
so-
interested.
It's so freaking rad. Kind of the only problem is though when you move it into Fantasy Ground, it just kind of does the topical, the top view down. You don't get all the really cool where you can spin it around and whatnot. But what is nice about it though is however you build your setting, it automatically sets it up for line of sight. It puts in all the walls and the doors and the windows, and it does all of that.
Right.
So as soon as you drop it in Fantasy Grounds, it's set up so that, like I said, the point of view or the line of sight is just already there. It's amazing. It's really cool. And before that, I used Dungeon Fog, but I think I like Incarnate the best for sure. Oh, mystery hand, mystery napkin.
That's
I got dinner.
nice.
Ooh.
This might I'm an older guy, so sometimes technology is not the best thing with me. But to tell you the truth, for the majority of my campaigns, I actually got the larger sheet of graph paper, like the 22, 23, and actually made a lot of my own maps. I would transfer it over from smaller graph paper and do all that stuff. It just a lot of times I couldn't either, like, it sounds really bad, but I couldn't figure out, or I had no way of printing out the maps or have a medium. Like, Ben's got the most rad DM, one of the most rad DM tables I've ever seen, and can do a lot with the maps, but I just didn't have that. But it's one of those things where it's just, if you really want to play and you really want to do it, you'll just find a way to make it happen. And there's been times where, like, I left the grid paper at home, but I've had we put just pieces of 8x10 paper down and drew out from memory some of the stuff. But here's the thing, it's like when we discussed this before, especially in the earlier days when you didn't have maps, you drew out your maps anyway. But if everybody was just having a fun time and using their imaginations, it's just turning great. Some of the best sessions we had were, I forgot the map. You know what I mean? And we just said, hey, we're just gonna do it, and then sometimes you do some last minute changes, and everybody just rolled with it. It was a fun time. So I'm a little retro, I guess you could say, old school.
We did a big prison break in a game that Seth was in on, and that was just a giant. Well, you're talking about that giant 1 inch by 1 inch square graph paper, and it was drawn out on that. Well, I think it was an eraser, a dry erase one, but it was still the same idea. And then at the bottom of that, we added on some like maps that I had just like, they're just like little map papers, and those were stuck to the bottom. And I think we hand drew some other stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's super, super fun. Like, this squiggly line is a tree, and you quick draw a box, and you're like, that's supposed to be a table. And here's some chairs, and it looks like garbage, but it's just a point of reference in your mind. It looks like the most amazing thing, ever. What about you, Jake? What do you use?
I've used, I've kind of evolved over the years. So with my first campaign, I used something called Map Tools. It's like a free software program for. You can implement. You can use any PDF or JPEG image you want. Throw it in there. You outline the walls, the pillars, and everything, and then you can put your own custom tokens in there, and they can move around, and they'll have their own field of view that you can customize depending on if they like dark vision or whatever, a torch. And it worked it worked pretty good for a pretty good amount of time. I usually did that if we were doing online. In person, I usually just had the map on like a TV and just put the TV on its back, and we just use actual minis and run around like that. But now with my most current one, I've been using Tailspire for when I do online, and I love it. It is fantastic.
Oh, that's
nice. Cool. I've seen ads for that, and I've been really curious.
Yeah, no, it's a great time. The community is great as well. If you don't have time to make something, you can just look up like, a tavern, and you just drag it over and pop it in.
Incarnate's the same way. I belong to I have a few Patreons that I support too that have 3D moving maps that I love, and I've spent so much money and supported so many people on Patreon, because I'll just scroll through, and I'm like, oh, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I got to figure out how to crowbar this really cool animated map into my game, and done that as well. So I'm not sure you're using anything besides Incarnate.
Mostly just Incarnate right now. But I do want to look into more animated maps. So I'm going to look into these things that you guys are mentioning.
Yeah, there is some good ones that are free on YouTube also that I've run across. If you can,
I pay for Incarnate.
I'll walk you through that sometime. Because you have to have a VLC player also. But it's really easy to get the YouTube video and the code, put it in VLC, and then you get another code and you post that in your browser. And then once it's in your browser and running, you can save it as a MP4 file. But I will walk you through that sometime. It's super easy.
Okay.
Super easy. Seth, what about you?
Well, I think like others, when I first started, it was all kind of in the mind. We didn't use maps. We actually started using Lego miniatures for our character minis, and when it was required, we would use those and kind of just put them out as a rough kind of battle area, but otherwise not too much with maps. I would do a lot of describing. When COVID hit, we moved to using fantasy grounds, and
I remember those terrible maps.
yeah, there were some bad ones, but the modules that I'm using actually have really good maps.
Yeah, I'm talking about my maps, not your maps.
Oh, yeah, some of them were a pain, and kind of learning to use fantasy grounds was a little bit of a pain at the beginning. But now that I know what I'm doing in it, it's really easy to use, and the maps have been great. I haven't done a lot of map creation yet. So, I mean, I'm really interested in using that Dungeon Alchemist.
Oh, it's so cool,
But,
yeah.
I mean, as long as I've got pre-made maps, I tend to use those. But someday, yeah, I'm going to bring in through some custom scenarios and some custom fights and maybe make my own maps in Dungeon Alchemist.
That's cool. Ahmnestria, eat. Your food's going to get cold. It's fine. You can eat in front of all these millions of people. We'll just watch you.
No, I was going to show you guys. So I used to make my maps. I used to draw them, and this is one of my first map dungeons.
Wow! Holy
cow!
Shoot!
Is that on graph paper?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
It looks
That
like
is-
Dungeon Bad Mage.
so good.
Yeah, that is
Wow.
that is
and then of
more-
course all of this text paper accompanied it for each room. Like,
Wow.
That's awesome.
And this one's even laminated. Well, I laminated it with tape, but yeah. Like,
Wow, you're devoted.
Yeah,
So-
you're making me feel really lazy here.
I just
Me too.
dropped a pile of paper on my dog. But,
Well-
so yeah, there was like this one. This was a little bit smaller, more simple.
Nice.
Wow.
That is really good.
Yeah, good job. Well, let's ask. It's Tingles. It's Jason, right?
Yes, sir.
Jason, what do you like to see, or do you even have to see anything? Like, how do you prefer to have a reference of where you're at and what's going on?
I like the imagination side of things, just kind of picturing it for yourself. But having some kind of map to, like, just as like a placeholder on where you're at and like
Mhm.
what's behind you, what's ahead of you, like it added some, especially online. It was kind of nice when we were playing just through Discord and we had the map tool or whatever. But
Right.
I'm pretty good with the imagination, just picturing it for myself. But I know I've talked to people that like to have that frame of reference too, just for fun, I guess. But
I think my chair went down. I got you. Here's what I have noticed, and maybe you guys can attest to this. I actually had to put a sticky note on my DM screen that says, the 5 senses, or always remember the 5 senses. I catch myself being slightly lazy when I have a map, and then when I have to describe the surroundings or the settings or the tavern, if I have a really freaking cool rad map, then it comes up and it's animated and everything's there right in front of you, I tend to forget to talk about what the smells are, or is it hot in there, or the things that you're hearing. I tend to get lazy sometimes, and I try not to, but it just happens. I don't know if that happens to you guys too, but
I might forget about at temperature. I think is what I forget about.
I forget about sound a lot, I think.
That's one thing I think over time I've gotten good at. I don't necessarily describe it, but I'll have, like, of course, like the background music, but I'll also have background ambiance to go with whatever location they're in. Like if they're in a tavern, I'll throw on some bunch of people drinking and
right.
talking in the background. But yeah, I'm pretty terrible about that when I have a map up for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I try to have a playlist, a kind of a go-to if it's a tavern or a town square, or even just or just desert sounds. These guys were stuck in the desert for days, and it was just constant wind blowing. And if it's supposed to be uncomfortable, I'll crank the sound way up, so it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that happened in a last session of ours.
It's good to make everybody feel miserable. All right, let's see. I got one here. What was it? You stole my maps question, which is fine. Draw inspiration. Oh, I know. So let's go around. Who's got? Ahmnestria is eating, so she's probably not ready for her question yet.
I'm ready. I'm always ready.
House rules. As a DM, everybody tends to have their own house rules. Maybe something they've picked up from somewhere else that they've incorporated. I've got a couple that I really, really like doing. That's sort of out of the norm. Seth, what do you have? Let's go around the horn.
So one of the things I really, really love about D&D 5e is the advantage and disadvantage system and the inspiration point. So any player can be awarded an inspiration point that will give them advantage on a roll whenever they want it. And I really, really like that mechanic. And Pathfinder does not have that in it. It's got some sort of hero point thing that is kind of similar, and players can spend them to do a reroll. But I really liked how D&D 5e incorporated that and allowed other players to reward each other. So I just full on stole that mechanic from my Pathfinder game, and we've incorporated it. And so every player will start a session with 1 point of inspiration, and they can award that to other players as we go along, or I can award it for especially good or funny things. And I think that adds a lot, because that reroll lets people do sometimes heroic and silly things. And I like that.
That's awesome. Excuse me. I got the allergies are killing me. So how about Jason? Is there a particular house rule that you like or hate?
I don't know if I can really speak to that. You're talking like just things that aren't necessarily in the game, just added,
right?
Like homebrew.
Yeah, like maybe something that your group does that maybe normally isn't done, or another group wouldn't do.
I don't know if I have enough experience in the game to know. Jake can take that one.
Go with it, Jake.
I think so this is several years ago. I think I played with the idea of if you roll a nat 1 on an attack roll, you could potentially hurt someone else. And that was a terrible idea. I did not like that.
No.
I got rid of that real quick. Yeah, other than that, I think I do a custom thing for nat 20s on attack rolls. I actually don't know what the base rules are because I've always just done this. So you do the full damage without the plus. So like say it's like a short sword and you have like a +3 after you roll the dice. Sure. So you roll that whatever that dice is, and then, it's whatever the max damage for that dice, and then you add on your actual roll for the next time, and that's your crit. What actually is is crit usually? Is it just double automatically, or what do you usually do?
In our games, we do double damage, but you don't just roll the 20 and then just add, or then just double that. You roll the 20 twice. Or whatever your damage is. I'm sorry, not necessarily a 20, but if it's 2d6 damage, and you roll, maybe you had a bad roll on that first one. So with the double damage, you can roll it again, and then maybe the number's higher.
Oh, okay. So I'm more generous, I guess. Another one is, I forgot where I took this from, but when a character dies and you resurrect them or something, it gets harder each time you do it. There's I have like a number written down where essentially their connection to the material world is fading over time, so that DC gets harder. But depending on what type of resurrection it is, if it's just revivify, which is like instant, I won't necessarily do this, but if they're dead for like a week, I might have like the players get around him or whatever, and they might do whatever they can to potentially help him get back. And depending on what they roll, I'll add or subtract to that or to their roll to get them back, in addition to the spell itself. But
I gotcha.
Other than that, I don't think I have anything else.
Right. That's cool. Barry? I can't even imagine what Barry's got effing going on at his place with house rules.
Well, for me, it's one of those things is just kind of my house rule is is being able to. There will be certain times if it adds to gameplay in fun and imaginative, I will bend the rules, and that's kind of just my own personal one. Is knowing when to do that, knowing when it's one of those things. If the group's really having a good time or they're really trying to figure something out and they come up with creative ways to do it, I will be like, okay, I will take like the ability checks and go, okay, well, try throwing this at it, or like maybe trying to encourage them try to different checks to do those kind of things if it encourages the gameplay, and if they're just having a blast and they're having fun. I'm not giving gimmies, but there's a lot of times in the rule books like, hey, if you don't roll this, but if they roll close enough, I'll give them something enough of a nugget till they'll figure it out. Right. You know what I mean? To where I won't just give it to them like, oh yeah, hey, it opens. I'm like, hey, you kind of notice like maybe there's like the store's not opening, but you notice it's really stuck at the bottom, and you find out, hey, there's also a toe lock on there, and so then they got to go down there. That encourages them to go down there, and like they'll either figure out like, hey, okay, do we want to try and see if we can pry this open, or does the barbarian want to see if they can break it? How they want to do it? And then when I notice, usually when the whole entire group's in on it, I'll get a little bit bendy on the rules. I won't completely break them, but I'll bend that. And then just kind of that's kind of like my main house rule is knowing when to bend that one. The other one is and then the other one is one that Ben, you and I both agree on is on a lot of aspects at the same time. Unless you pull up out of character. Or do like, hey, we usually do this or like this, like, okay, I know you have a question, you're out of character, what's going on? But if you say it, you say it. Yeah, you know what I mean. So that's the other kind of the staunch house rule that I got. Like, that's good. It's one of those things. I agree with you because if not, then people are like, oh no, I changed my mind, and they try to.
And it's usually based on somebody pressuring them. Are you sure you want to do that? Well, yeah, maybe I don't do that. Well, it's like you already said it. You've already cast it, like it's happening.
Yeah. So that is kind of one of the words that you've implemented that I do implement. I'm like, well, you said it or you did it. You can't take it back. That's one of the things is if you have an action, you cannot take it back.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. When we were talking about a gimme, so sometimes if a player puts in so much effort into describing their attack or something that they're doing, and it sounds like the most rad thing I've ever heard, I want to see how it goes. I don't want you to just have described this gigantic cool thing to me and everybody's sitting around the table and we're all excited to see how it goes, and you might roll a 1 and it just goes to crap. So when we were playing with Bill, there was giant crabs were attacking, like these huge crabs. And Bill's Dragonborn character, he's like, it's the chain link fence going around this pit that they were fighting in. And he was like, I'm going to run over to this fence and I'm going to climb up the fence about this high. And then I'm going to leap through the air and I'm going to land on the back of the crab and I'm going to grab its eye stalk so I can steer it. I was like, holy crap, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. I was like, you do it. And then so he's on the crab. And like, how much fun is that compared to, you slipped, trying to climb the fence and fell and hurt your leg and, take 2 bludgeoning damage. It's way more fun than he made it on the back of the crab and he's steering it by the eyeballs. So sometimes you've got to give it.
Yeah, but then there's also the card to that too, because the Dragonborn one time in our campaign, the Bob Ross Barbarian wanted to pull off, and he describes like, hey, I'm gonna roll over this rock, I'm gonna slide down, then I'm gonna come down with my axe, and I gave him a gimme, but I didn't give him the attack, if that makes sense. So when he did it, he rolled a 1. So I'm like, you run down the thing, you go over the rock, you slide down, and then you like. Basically, when you come down with your axe, you basically just, it comes back and then just dings you on the head. And then instead of the attack, I'm like, but however, your opponent is cracking up laughing so hard he's going to have disadvantage on the next roll.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So so it's like one of those things where it's like you give it to him because you want him to encourage those things, and even though they fail, you kind of find a way you both win. So I take that back. I guess it's a gimme.
That's good.
Yeah,
though.
I do, or one of my characters, his name is a Warforged named 404. He's a fighter, and he is my campaign's Deadpool character. Every campaign's got one. And he is, in one of the most recent sessions, he was tied to a boat getting dragged up to the surface. He's Warforged, he doesn't have to breathe, so that's just happening. While the ship is being attacked by a giant squid. And they drive off the squid without his help, and it's running away. And he's like, I want to shoot my grappling hook at it. And I was like, okay, this is underwater. You can certainly try. And he, once again, he rolls really high. He definitely hits it. And I'm like, yeah, you scored that hit. You're now tied to the boat going in one direction and the squid going in the other direction as fast as it can. Roll me a Constitution save because you're about to get pulled in two different directions very violently.
Oh, that's great. All right, Ahmnestria, you done eating? You want to tell us you got to have a good house rule.
This one's not really like out there, but if you roll 3 nat 20s on attack rolls in a row, you kill the creature.
Oh, that's a good one.
Wow.
That okay. Like anybody in the party?
Yeah. So any
Gotcha,
character in the party, if on their attack rolls, if they roll nat 20s 3 times, it has to be in a row consecutively. They kill it. So it has not happened yet, but I've had 2 in a row, and they got real excited.
Right.
And then yeah. But otherwise, another, I don't know if it's so much a rule, is like I'll tell them to roll for something, but I don't have a number in mind. And then I see the rolled number on the dice, and I go, yeah, looks good to me.
No.
You didn't have a DC in mind?
Yeah, I'm just like, if it sounds low to me, probably not. And they're like 17. I'm like, that sounds fine.
Sounds fine.
So what if it's like a fighter that picked like champion, where if you roll a 19, you still get a crit?
Yeah.
I haven't had that come up, but I think the rule would apply to actually rolling a nat 20.
Okay.
Fine, it's your rule.
Your table, fine.
If I thought it might be really cool, I might bend the rule for that instance. But I think so far I've had it at nat 20s, like you have to roll a 20. But that means cool. Like even the weakest character could kill the dragon. True. If they rolled well.
That's true. So I have 2. Mine is for, this is really fun because it happens all the time. Almost every door you run into is locked. And so somebody always wants to pick the lock. So what I do is, so it goes by your what is it? It's your proficiency bonus. God.
Okay.
Your proficiency bonus. So like and usually goes by your level. So if you are a 5th level character and you're going to pick a lock, you have to roll 5 d6s. Okay? And every time that a 1 comes up, you can re-roll that 1 2 times or 3 times based on whatever your modifier is, your proficiency bonus. So if you were to try to pick a lock, you roll your 5th level, you roll 5 d6s and you get 2 1s. If you're level 3, you get 3 chances to re-roll those 1s so that they're not 1s. Does that make sense? So you'll re-roll, and then hopefully you don't get another 1, and then you have another 1 out of that set that you got to re-roll. You can do that up to 3 times if your bonus is 3, or if it's 2. I like that one. So it's not just like you roll 1 dice and you pick the lock, it's good. There's got to be something to, you're still trying and these things are happening and you're rolling and you're trying to eliminate those ones that you've rolled on your dice, on your 1d6s. Does that make sense? Maybe you have to play it to have it make sense. All right, fine. Anyway, it's a good
I've
one.
experienced that. It's really good.
Right. Maybe I'm explaining it wrong, but the other one that we have that I really like is when somebody is doing death saves and somebody wants to try to administer first aid or help them. So if it's not that player's turn, let's say they've already rolled 1 and failed, and so they have, they have two more deaths or 2 more fails and they're dead. If somebody tries to go over and administer help or first aid or do something, as soon as that player does that, that character again has to immediately roll a death save, because that help that they're giving them could either help them or they could have done a really bad job and made things worse. And so we need to know right then, not till it comes all the way around again to that person's turn to make a death save. So, you can either help them or you can speed up their, chance of dying. I think my wife just came down. So those are my 2 that. Oh, and then the other one too is I always give the armor class to a creature that anybody's fighting, and that is just to kind of help speed things up. They're going to figure it out anyway at some point, the players, but if they're fighting whatever that is an owlbear or whatever, and I'll say the armor class is a 17, so that way they know when they roll to attack, they know right away if they hit it, and if they did, they can immediately roll their damage, or they know immediately that they didn't hit it and they don't bother and it goes right on to the next person.
Can I ask a tie-in question? Kind of, it's on a similar vein, and I was wondering if, and even with its tingles, do you allow your players to say, "I have X amount of hit points left," or do you let the say a mystery? Because I've had a couple different people play a different way, a couple different DMs. There's some DMs where they won't allow you to say, "Hey, I have this many hit points." Because they wanted to keep it in life. They're like, oh, they're really bad. They're wobbling. They're down on one knee. And they feel like it adds a little bit more drama. I was just kind of curious of is that something that It's Tingles as a player would prefer, or do you want to know the number or along that lines?
Oh, I like the realism. Leave the numbers out probably.
Mm-hmm.
At least in combat, just keep it moving and. I definitely I like to keep it, and as far as the armor class goes, it could go either way. I understand speeding things up, and it's nice, but at the same time, when you're rolling and you hit that 18, it's no, that doesn't hit, and you're like, crap.
We've all been there, man. We've all been there.
I kind of do that.
Here she is.
Hi, Megan.
Hello. Hey.
Don't mind me just doing wife stuff in my husband's underpants. Okay.
We didn't know we were getting that in this.
Bye.
It's a scandalous stream now.
That leads into a little bit too what we're talking about. Also with damage, when a player rolls and they get a good hit and then they roll their damage, I always tend to explain what happened and what it looks like and go into all these great bloody gory details and this and that. And then sometimes I think, am I stealing the player's thunder where it's a good hit and it was a good amount of damage? Maybe should I let them describe what they did, because they know the armor class, they know how much damage they did. It's just as much you did the damage. You should maybe possibly tell us what you did or what it looks like. And I've tried that a few times, and some people clam up because they get not embarrassed, but it's hard for them to describe what they did, or maybe they do get embarrassed, and so it could go either way. But I don't know, how do you guys do it?
I let them describe the killing blow.
Yeah, I do that.
I'm
Same
like,
here.
okay. So they'll roll it, they'll roll their damage, and I say, okay, how do you want to do this? And that's how they know. Okay, well, the monster's gonna die. I want to kill it in a cool way. And
right.
But for the most part, if they're describing what they're doing, and a non-lethal blow, sometimes they don't know, like, oh, maybe the monster's resistant, or
Yeah, I can see that.
to a certain element, or it's resistant to your sword, or so I usually tend to describe the non-lethal blows, but I let them describe how they kill it.
Yeah, I get that. Jason, what about you? What do you think of that? Would you rather describe each blow that you do or did damage-wise, or does it okay if the DM describes it?
We've always done it, and the 2 campaigns I've been a part of, they always did they would describe everything up until the killing blow, and then that's up to the player. And like she just said, there's things you may not know about it, so kind of get it. Now, if the DM said, oh, go ahead and just describe how you're attacking it, that would be like different, but generally.
But that you don't feel like that, like we're stealing your thunder by describing this great damage blow that you've done with something.
No, not at all.
No, okay, that's cool.
I have an interesting player integration thing. I don't know if it just showcases me being lazy as a DM. Jason, you didn't experience this, but I started to do this. There might be a scene in which like the party enters this noble's mansion, and there's like a spat between nobles in the backyard over something. And I would actually give the roles to 2 of the characters or 2 of the players, and then have them just play it out. And it actually worked wonderfully a few times. Yeah. And then I would have stuff going on in the background for them to also pay attention to. But it actually surprisingly worked out. Only for those people willing to do it, though. Some people are certainly shy.
Right.
But like those, I have a couple of like drama nerds at my table, and they love it. So.
It is funny you mention that, because like with the group, one of the groups that I had, we have 2 very, very, very introverted people, and then another one that is like you said, very much they were steeped in drama. They're kind of a lot like me, improv background, all that kind of stuff. And I usually find it, to answer your question, Ben, it's a little bit of a mix. Like the drama types will be like, I come in with a foil right to their eye, I'm trying to pick their nose, or I'm going to circumcise this guy, or something like that. So actual quote. All right, that is a quote from one of the players. Like, I'm going to circumcise this guy, and I'm like, okay, all right, we'll go with it. But then there's the other ones where they're just kind of like, oh yeah, you're fine, you can explain whatever you want. So a little mixed bag. And
I'm sorry, not to go off on a tangent. But I've had a few introverted players as well, and something that I found that has opened them up a bit is, depending on what character they're playing as, but they would assume the role of the party leader, and that certainly, I feel like, opened them up a bit, rather than them just like agreeing with one person all the time.
So you assign them that duty?
No, it's always up to the characters who's going to be the party leader, because I feel like it's important to make decisions and not just spat at the table about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
you can almost see those players just kind of, you can see on their face or just their reactions that maybe not what they would have liked to have done or done. And it would be great to hear from you and what do you want to do?
Yeah.
That happens too in gameplay. Is you've got a lot of boisterous, loud players, and you've got people that are quiet, and you've really got to make sure that you are letting that quiet person be heard, or not not bowled over by the group. And I try to do that as much as I can. I've got some players in another campaign that are just super loud, and they just jump in right away to try to do the thing. And there's some other players that just kind of sit by the what's that? Yes, go.
Oh no, I was saying I'm your super loud, boisterous character who's always talking over somebody else.
No, it's the group that Barry's in. Actually, it's Paish
and
Bill. Paish and Bill, and there's nothing wrong with how they play. I love how they play, but they're almost trying to beat each other to the punch to get something done, and it's just like sometimes we got to hear from the other players, and I have to remember to go in. It's happened to Barry. I'm like, Barry, did you say something? Like, hold on, guys. Barry, what did you say? Because I could just hear this little peep. And it's not that Barry's quiet. It's just the other two are so gung ho and kind of loud that sometimes even Barry gets lost in the
Yeah,
shuffle.
and it's I appreciate you as a DM doing that, because and I've had to do the same thing in my campaigns. And what's really interesting when I find about introverts, my wife's an introvert. I mean, she would rather stay home and play her game or whatever. But the one thing I usually find about introverts that are really great, and I really love playing with them, is what people don't really know about introverts is they take everything in. They really do. They're the people. They're just fine at the party watching, and they know the whole situation, and their perspectives are always so awesome. And it's usually a lot of times, because we do have our wildfire characters that are doing this, but it's a lot of times the introverts that really come up and go, "Hey, maybe when we approach this bad guy, we approach it this way." And then everybody's like, "Oh," it's one of those things. So listen to your introverts, and then sometimes throw a dart in that extrovert. I know I've had a few darts in my neck as I put it, But yeah, it's great playing with them, and I could ramble on for hours about it, but I'm not.
So yeah, I myself, I'm a little bit of an introvert, but I'm kind of on the spectrum a little bit. I've got ADHD, so I have a real hard time as a player, knowing when to talk, and I'm always suppressing my urge to just jump in and say, "Oh, we need to do this. We need to do this right now." So as a player, that is a struggle that I'm always going through, which is why I said I'm Benito's loud player at that campaign. But as a DM, so kind of going back to the question, do we describe or don't we? I'm actually playing with a lot of introverts, and my wife is an introvert, and she does not like doing a lot of role playing. And I've got a couple players who are actually, most of the group is kind of like that. They don't like to do a lot of role playing. They don't like to describe what they're doing. But I love doing that stuff. I love describing what they do, and they seem to really enjoy when they do a big attack or a big roll, kind of a cinematic description of what happens. And as a DM, I like learning my players and or the characters of the players, and I will describe things how best I think fits the flavor of that character who they've got. Mm-hmm. My wife plays an artificer in our campaign, and in the first session, I kind of described her introduction because she doesn't like doing the whole doing the role play. So in the opening riot, I had her character beating a policeman about the head with this giant wrench she'd put a sign on, and just shouting, "This was supposed to be a peaceful protest," while beating someone about the head. She just loved that. So
that's awesome. All right. Well, we got about 20 minutes left. So, Ahmnestria, are you ready for your question yet?
Do one more.
Anybody else got one more? I got something that might be kind of fun for everybody to try at some point. As the
you said you had a lot of questions. So
yeah. Go ahead, man. I got one, but go ahead.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You're the DM of this whole thing.
I don't know what I thought you said
right now, man.
You're like the DM of DMs. Go on.
Here's what I like to do, and I suggest try it just once if you think it sounds fun. So if somebody's if one player usually happens to the rogue, and they sneak off and they overhear a conversation, my favorite thing to do is to take that player and leave the room with that player. I've got the conversation already written down or figured out. And so once we leave the room away from everybody, I'll say, "You're overhear this conversation." And then I go straight into the conversation, the back and forth. And then we come back in together. And then, then the rogue supposedly comes back to the group and they're like, "What happened? What did you see or what did you hear?" It is so funny to hear somebody try to tell back the group of a conversation they overheard, because they fuck it up every time. And so then it's all misinformation and all this stuff that I was going to give them that was these clues of how to, very important things and what needs to happen next. And they come back and they screw the whole thing up. And
Oh, that's such a good idea.
It is
That is
so
great.
It is
That's a good
so
idea.
fun.
I
Because
do
then
some-
that person's on the spot and they're like, "What'd you hear?" And they're like, "It was something about a meeting here at this place. I don't remember what time the meeting was." And it's so great.
And you can
I'm
do
gonna
that
do
to
that.
anybody either. It doesn't have to be a rogue. It could just be
Yeah, no, I'm
any
just-
of the
that was
characters.
just-
Right. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that's a great way to engage anyone, really. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's very fun. Yeah, or yeah, you're right. I mean, even if it was a one-on-one, maybe somebody had a conversation with. Yeah, you're right. Just any one of the players off, away from the group. Because a lot of times when you describe something that only one player sees or knows about, and the whole group hears it, it's just like when they come back to the group, or not after, in game when they come back to the group, and the group's like, you just tell us everything that Benito just told you, right? And they're like, yeah, well. Yeah, because you heard me say it, but they really should have to reiterate what I said or what that character's interaction was. Try it a couple times. It is so funny
So,
to see how it goes south.
so taking this, sorry.
I've kind of done that since I have done mine online. I have like personal messaged
Yeah.
them what they overhear, and then they have to talk to the party about what they heard.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. I've blindfolded my players before. That they were in the back. Remember that, Seth? You guys were in the back of a wagon getting taken to a jail.
Oh yeah,
And that's the first time their players had even played or met each other. So I had everybody blindfolded in the back of the stinky orc wagon. And so I was describing the things they see and they hear and the conversations between the orcs. And
so one of the best sessions I have ever played with you, Benito, is where you did that with me, with my character, Agram, except you told me I couldn't tell anyone. I was the only player who knew what was going on. And that was a fantastic session for me because the whole time, I knew what was happening. And everyone, it's like the Bone Devil thing, where it had killed everyone except for me, and I was trying to save them.
Well, I'll give you a very quick Reader's Digest version of what happened there. So when the game started, everyone was dead, except for Seth's character. So
And no
Seth
one knew we were dead.
What's that?
No one knew we were dead.
Right, that's the thing. The rest of the players didn't know they were dead. So when we start to play, and I described that everybody's face down in a pool of whatever water, and Seth was the only one that was alive, and the Bone Devil has a conversation with Seth that says, hey, if you want to bring all your friends back to life, I'm going to need some souls. And the Bone Devil says, I can teleport you to another plane where you and your friends exist, and you have to trick them into holding on to this whatever tiki statue or whatever it was, and I'll teleport everybody back here again. So when we were playing, the players were expecting to fight this Bone Devil. When we come back, they're dead, and they're on a pirate ship, and Seth is in the water. And everybody was like, wait a minute, when we left last week, we were fighting a Bone Devil?
No, they didn't even know that. We had gone into a room, and you were like, as soon as we went into the room, you were like, and the session ends.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You're right. So anyway, when they come back the next week, they're on a pirate ship fighting was it like a tentacle monster or something? They're like, wait a minute, this is not the game that we left. So then Seth knew the whole time what was going on. He had to trick them and then they all die in the other game, and the souls were brought back and put back into the regular. It was just this whole convoluted, but nobody had any clue what the F was going on except for Seth.
Yeah,
but everybody was good about it because everybody's like, okay, we're on a pirate ship fighting a tentacle monster now, and they just went with it.
My poor dumb barbarian 8 in trying to trick everyone into doing this.
To touch the tiki at the same time. That was good. All right, sorry, I'm hogging this. Okay, Ahmnestria, 10 minutes.
Okay. So my question was, have you as a DM or as a player it's kind of as a DM, have you ever done anything to spite a player because they did something you didn't like? And on the flip side, Seeing goes, did you ever feel like a DM was doing something spiteful to you as a player for something that you've done?
I'll have to think about that.
Who's a salty DM here?
Go ahead, Seth, please.
Okay, so as I told you, I have a player who is a Warforged fighter named 404, and he is the Deadpool of my campaign. And he is constantly doing things that are just out of left field, just because he feels like it would be funny. And as I've said, my own philosophy on this is I try and say yes to my players. But when I say yes, I am also saying yes to the consequences of their actions. And I will spice up the consequences for it when they do something that's out of left field. And this has happened many times. Oh God, I've got a rogue who has such a high stealth that she will always leave the party and just go off on her own. Multiple times I've come up with things that would happen to her if she fails her save. One time I legitimately tried to make some very bad things happen to her. Unfortunately, she also managed to escape that, and I was really hoping to kind of teach her a lesson not to split the party, but unfortunately, she just learned that she can get away with that. So, with some good dice rolls. 404, I keep trying to teach him not to go and do the stupid thing, like with the squid and trying to tear him in half almost. But he manages to survive it every time, and I'm afraid that it is just encouraging him at this point.
Funny. Jake.
So I don't know if you were there for this one, Jason. I ran White Plume Mountain. I loved it. It was a great dungeon. It's it's one of the first ones that goes all the way back to like first edition. But we had a problem player that liked to. Well, he was a rogue. He was a deep gnome rogue, and he liked to pick up everything and just never give it to anyone else in the party. And I guess I'll just say what goes around comes around. There's a situation in which they're all in a room with these giant globes that you can't quite see through them, and they all had various different things in them. And like the room locked on itself. There was a key in one of them, but there's like monsters in the other one. They like cracked up half of them. They finally got the key, but he wanted to keep going to see if he can get extra treasure out of them. So the whole party said, you can do this by yourself, and like went out into the hallway and closed the door on him, and he started whacking away at these things. And I remember one of these globes housed 8 shadows inside of it. And that was a really easy way for him to die by himself. Yeah.
And so
I was there for that. I remember that.
That's great. Barry, how about you? You don't seem vindictive.
Let's put it this way. If they deserve it, it's going to come back. You just don't know when it's going to happen. Retribution will not be swift. It will be, okay, your day's coming. And one of those things. But usually the transgressions aren't like, I'm going to wipe you out of, existence on one things. Nothing along that. It's like no instant death scenarios. But I'm gonna get you, and it's gonna be fun, and it's gonna be creative. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make your character a little bit uncomfortable in some ways if I have to. That's what it's going to be. Like the letter home, you're going to admit that out. You're going to hope nobody, has the Dungeons and Dragons version of Instagram that they got that on. You know what I mean? So that's how I usually approach it. But fortunately, I haven't had any two players that were that way. Oh, I'll take that back. We had a cleric who like one of the scenarios is like he clerics always have their bags of spells and whatnot. So I had him go up against a couple of warlocks that they were all like, counterspell, dispel, whatnot, and that's what was his thing. He always had this bag of tricks. Like, hey, I have these combos of spell. So then when I got him in a situation to where he couldn't use any of them, and he's like, oh, okay, that's my crutch. And then I didn't kill him, but let's just say he went back to the village without any pants. So
That's funny. Oh, keep going. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm done.
I have, and I've already brought his name up once. It's Michael Peisch. I constantly poke that kid and try to kill him and do the worst possible things to him. And I don't know why. I think it's because of the way he reacts to things and how upset he gets about everything. I just kind of make sure everything happens to him. When we first started playing, he got, it was called Lyco, pseudo-lycoism. So somehow he got a curse put on him where he thinks when there's a full moon, he turns into a werewolf. And so some villagers caught him when he was killing some sheep, and they hung him up on a crucifix, and ravens came and plucked his eyeballs out. And when they found him, he was blind and had been stabbed and beat up, and they pull him off the thing, and they're limping him along. And oh no, he hadn't had his eyes plucked out yet, but he'd been beaten and whipped. And so they get him off the thing. They get to the castle, and he was the barbarian, so he'd always bust through doors without checking for traps or this or that. So the next session, he walked through a doorway that had been cursed, and as soon as he walked through the doorway, in his mind, he saw the worst, most horrific, terrible things that any person could ever see or be a part of. And he clawed his own eyeballs out. And so then he was blind for a little while. And then they replaced him with little raven eyeballs. So he had this giant barbarian with these little teeny raven eyeballs. And then later on, I made it so that the party was warned of a fireball that was coming down a giant hallway, but he was too far away to make it to the trap door, and they make it through, and he bursts into flames and dies, and comes back with a dark gift. He wanted to come back as this black demon barbarian with a giant wang. So he comes back, doesn't wear clothes, but he's got this giant horse wiener, and he thought that was awesome. And so another character possessed him and made him cut off his own wiener with a sword, and like all these horrible things that could possibly happen to one person keep happening to him. So then we're playing some more later on, different campaigns. He's super proud. He has a bag of holding. It's got like 80,000 gold pieces in it. And he's got skulls that were mind flayers over 60,000 gold pieces a piece. And so they're in this bag of holding, and I don't remember. How did that happen? Oh,
we were in the cavern.
And the character I pulled out the deck of many things. Let's see what happened. And so the very first card that gets pulled, he plays a warlock. The very first card that gets pulled is everything that is magical item is now just a regular item. So everything he's ever had, he kept in this bag of holding for 4 years that we've been playing. It's just a bag now. So now he's all pissed off about that. Then they pick on the wish spell, they get a keep that just shows up in a random spot. And so Bill, this guy that I was telling you before, always is kind of, they're picking at each other. Bill picks this town that's called Athlatka. In Athlatka, it's illegal to practice magic unless you spend $5,000 to buy a license to practice magic. So now Peisch's character lives in a town where he can't practice magic, or he's going to be executed if he doesn't pay the fine. In this town, I'm not making this stuff up. In this particular city that they live in, the two classes that are looked down upon that are magic users are bards and warlocks. So you have to pay an extra $1,000 to the oligarchs of the town to be able to practice magic on top of the 5,000. And he doesn't have any money because it was all in the bag of holding. So here's the last session that we played, and Barry effed him over hard. Barry ran into a relief, a stone relief on a wall who was granting wishes. And it was set up that this thing is going to F you if you make a wish. But Barry was bound and determined he was going to make a freaking wish. And so as the game is ending for the night, Barry decides on the wish. He's like, my friend over here, talking about Pice, he goes, my friend over here used to have a bag of holding. And my wish is that he gets his bag of holding back. Well, in the actual campaign, it says no matter what the player wishes for, it's got to come with the most dire consequences possible, and alluding to that the character should die. So yeah, so he tells Pice that, or the wish, the relief that he wants Pice to have his bag of holding back. And so the wish happens immediately. Pice's character is catapulted all the way back to the last whatever campaign where he found his bag of holding, shot him back in time. So now he's, clear up in Icewind Dale for however many, campaigns that was back. And now so Pice's character is completely gone now, and he has to make a whole new character because Barry effed him over. But for 4 years, I've been effing this kid over, and he just comes back every week ready to see what horrible things are going to happen to his character.
Okay, so in my defense, I had no idea that the wishes would do with this, and I was playing to type, all right, because my character's neutral good, and he was trying to do a good thing. Ruby was trying to do something good for his buddy. He lost everything, and so out of just good intent, and that's the one thing I like about it. Sometimes just out of good intentions, the most awful thing happens, and that's what happened because Ruby, out of just being a good cleric, a healer, was feeling so bad for this guy, makes this wish, and then just sees this guy just get.
Well, and the whole time, the way the relief was talking was you knew that it was going to be bad, and Pice was saying, "Don't wish for anything, don't include me in anything, don't fall for the trick and make a wish." And Barry made the wish anyway and killed Pice basically. All right, funny. Okay, so Ahmnestria, let's hear yours. You've obviously done it because it was your question.
So going back to that story I talked about earlier where they yeeted that child into the sky. That child was very important to the plot, and I tried everything to get the party to keep it. So when they did not keep the child, I actually ended the world and had to make basically them getting rid of that. I had to write a whole new campaign. So I ended the world, and I had a character. The character who was the one that did not want the child absolutely hated demons. So the world, when it ended, everybody they knew turned into a demon, but not every demon was bad. Sometimes they were just a demon. But they still if they retained their memories from when they weren't a demon, they weren't taken over by the darkness, but they were a demon still. So he had to control his demon racism, I guess. So he hated everything about the new world because everybody was a demon, and he wanted to kill everyone, but he couldn't because they weren't technically bad people. And the way that they could tell was if they spoke common, they retained some of their memories. But if they spoke this language that they didn't understand, it did mean that they had lost their memories and were no longer the people that they knew. But one of the people that did not speak common was a love interest of one of the other party members.
Oh.
So they meet her again. And so he's trying his darndest to win her over, and she was a moth lady, and so the spores on her wings would cause them to hallucinate. And so they would just start seeing things, and the party started fighting a lot, and so there was a lot of just fighting between the members because one would see one stealing from one of them, and then so they'd try to stop them, but then they'd be like, "What are you doing? You were stealing that." "No, I wasn't." And there was always fights, and It was all because they decided to yeet that child into the sky.
See, Jason, as DMs, we're vindictive assholes.
I'm seeing
I
that
will
now.
destroy the world if you don't do what I want
That is
you
the
to do.
DM equivalent of flipping over a card table.
Yeah, see,
It is appropriate.
I am.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying I'm really confused now because I don't know if I want to play with you and then like avoid you, or play your campaign and just antagonize you to just see what evil creative thing that you will do. So now I'm like,
basically, the thing that they were trying to stop, which was this cult was trying to get a hold of this powerful child to like take over and open a portal to the demons. They decided to take a shortcut, and so they got stuck in a teleportation circle for 7 years.
Jesus.
And so, like, they didn't know any time had passed because they were stuck in it. But they came out and everything was like destroyed, and they're like, "Oh, that's weird." So basically, the thing they were trying to stop happened, and then they had to try to figure out a way to fix what they've done. And it was because they did not protect this child.
Wow, I thought I was an
I
asshole.
don't feel like that's actually being vindictive. Like you may have thought about it being vindictive, but I think that's one of the most important parts about being a DM is like giving the players agency and letting them experience the consequences of their actions.
Right, you're right.
I did create a demon specifically to annoy the one character, though.
I mean, that's just good fun.
He liked to sing show tunes, and I actually would play like music that he was singing to them, and he would try to get him to dance, and it was like a musical for like half the campaign. And so this character was grumpy. He was like he didn't want anything to do with it, and I was like, he's not gonna stop until you sing with him. And
Made him sing in character, or you made him actually sing?
I didn't get him to sing, but he at least danced. So.
Oh, that's great. I saw an interview with a professional DM, and he was talking about, letting what you're saying, Seth, is just letting the players go. And he was like, I had the most loose outline kind of what I was thinking, as far as the campaign was going to go as an end result. And he was like, I just let them go. He was like, they got side jobs. They were doing this. He's like, I didn't railroad anybody in any position or any direction, but I kept kind of moving things around that they would run into. And he's like, I just handed the entire game to them, and I just facilitated, how interactions happen and how things, we're going to go with the dynamics and the physics of things. But he was like, that was one of the most fun campaigns I'd ever been in, because I didn't feel like they weren't doing what I needed them to do, or I didn't feel like my story was being followed, or all the work I had put into it. He's like, it was all on their shoulders. They did the entire thing. I just gave them the place to do it. And then I just helped them along, and just, it was their story. And I thought, God, that sounds so fun and scary all at the same time.
That's I'm planning on doing that with a have you heard of like the Grim Hollow campaign setting?
Mm-mm.
Very grim, dark soulsy kind of thing. Cool. And I'm planning on doing that with them. It's gonna be a good time.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be curious how that went, because it sounds so fun. But again, scary. I can't even come up with an NPC name on the fly, let alone an entire.
That's kind of how I DM. I have a point A and I have a point B. I don't have a plan on how they get there.
Oh, that's so cool.
But this child was actually important, but they never figured it out. So then I was like, okay, well, throw that campaign. Here's a new point A and a new point B.
Yeah, I feel like we did that to Benito with our wish.
Oh man, how fun. Yeah, they shot the wish spell and completely ruined my Tomb of Annihilation game, so I shot them 650 years into the future after aliens have taken over the world.
Take that, players.
Take that.
So I was wondering from the player, like, and Tingles, do you feel like somebody's taken, like, have you felt like your DM specifically taking a shot at you?
Not me. I know, not in Jake's campaign, but the other campaign I was in, we had a very curious player that asked far too many questions for that DM to handle. And it was like same questions, just worded differently, and he just kept trying to politely be like, "Oh, that's all they know, that's all they know." And it got to a point that it was halting everything, and he was taking shots in game from NPCs and stuff. And honestly, I don't think I've ever felt that from Jake or him personally, but
Yeah. Was it uncomfortable? Like everybody at the table could tell what was going on?
yeah. I mean, to an extent. I mean, he was good. He was nice about it, but it was just like little things that would happen that would, you know. She didn't respond well though, and she ended up stopped playing. But
no.
Wasn't it the DM's girlfriend?
that is another player's girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
Oh no.
So, yeah, that campaign did not last very long.
Oh shoot. Well, guys, we did 2 hours and 10 minutes. That's pretty good, and I don't feel like I have to edit anything. But sometimes when Ahmnestria and I get on here, I have to edit the crap out of things because we go on such a tangent in the wrong direction. I usually cut 10 or 15 minutes out, but we did really good. I'm not going to edit any of this. This was a really good show, and I appreciate that every one of you guys came on here.
I feel like
Jason,
we could do this again, and still, like, we're not anywhere close to being
yeah, right.
done.
Like, because I was saying one thing, I was thinking of 10 more things that I wanted to say. So we could definitely come back to this, maybe down the road. And now that we've got one under our belt, and something's happened in the meantime, we can bring up some examples or some fun things that have happened in campaigns that we're in. But I do appreciate every one of you guys coming on, and girls, and taking the time to talk about some things. Jason, I don't know what you learned. I hope it was good.
I've learned not to upset Ahmnestria and most of you guys.
It's not a god complex, I swear.
So I mean, that's a good rule for any campaign: is don't get on your DM's bad side.
Yeah.
And Jake, don't take this the wrong way, but is there an OnlyFans for just voices?
Oh my god! Listen to it.
ASMR. That's what
there you go.
I'll have to look into that now.
Yes,
I got one last question for Jason. Jason, do you want to ever DM?
I have actually wanted to, and I've talked to Jake about doing a one shot or whatever. I do like it, and this has actually been very informative. I'm glad you had me on here. But
thanks for coming on. It is so fun to be the DM, but you sort of get pigeonholed, and once you do it, you kind of get stuck doing it, and you got to beg somebody to DM for a little bit so that you can actually play. Yeah. Thank you, Barry.
You're welcome, man. I'm glad to do it.
Well, let's go around the horn one more time. I'm Benito Garcia from Go RPGs, and again, head over to Synergy Nation and check out all the really cool shows that are over there. This one's on there. There's tons of different ones, some great pop culture ones. There's ones related to just comic books. There's ones related to movies and drinking and just all kinds of really cool stuff. So go over there from the link. It's not really a link, but just put that in your browser. It'll get you over there. Seth, go ahead.
I'm Seth. I'm with the Galactic Driftwood podcast. You can find me there or at Writer Seth on Twitter. And I just talk about nerdy shit and political hot takes because that's my Twitter. But if you don't want that, find me on Galactic Driftwood.
Right, and the Driftwood is so fun. I thought you guys were just sci-fi, but you're really not. You're a lot of really fun, cool things that's going on in the.
We are the nerd collective.
Yeah, that's true for sure. Jason, it was cool having you on.
Yeah, thanks. Like I said, I learned a lot about DMing and kind of behind the scenes, so that's been cool.
Cool, and people can see you on Twitch on campaigns that are streaming, right?
I don't know if we're going to be streaming it, but it may be recorded.
Cool. All right, Jake.
Yep. Jake or Baklava. And yes, Barry, I've considered doing some type of narration or something. I've actually thought about doing like narrated D&D stories on YouTube or something. But yeah, I'm still poking around. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, fantastic. I loved your input. Berry Minty Crunch, Bacon Buddies. Let's hear it.
Yeah, Berry Minty Crunch done. My other passion is I cure and smoke my own bacon, and we're the Bacon Buddies. We're at the Bacon Buddies 402 on Instagram. Ben will attest to bacon. We do different flavors, exotic bacon. Like for instance, the batch we're curing right now, we have a Greek, a holiday. We cure the bacon or cure the pork bellies in brown sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, and then we smoke it. And
That's
then
my
the other,
favorite.
yeah, and then the other flavor that we have right now is taco. We actually do cure a pork belly with our cure mix and taco. And so, yeah, we were just kind of crazy. Like the next, like not to get, I can talk forever. But the next bacon I'm working on is a dill pickle bacon.
Oh
I don't know
no!
about that, Barry.
Yeah,
I'll try it.
Do it.
I'll try
Yeah.
it.
So, but I do also want to just
So
say, hey,
hungry
make sure.
right now.
Yeah, but other than that, I'll finish this up real quick. Is support Benito on the Sin Nation. Check out Seth at Writer Seth. Tings, I would play in your game if you ever want to DM. So I volunteer as tribute. Jake, look forward to hear it, and do check out Ahmnestria's Twitch stream. I followed you, Ahmnestria, so I want to throw out all you guys support out there. You guys are awesome, and thank you for having me. And I'll shut up now.
Oh, that's so lovely. though.
Ahmnestria, mistress of the dark.
So I'm Ahmnestria. I am active mostly on Twitch right now. I don't only do DM stuff. I also play video games and drink while I play video games, and sometimes get really upset because I play bad. But that's okay because I'm drinking. I don't care. It's always a good time. So if anybody hasn't checked out my Twitch, it's definitely, there are some VODs right now of me drinking and playing Halo. I'm going to get into some other games. Halo's Season 2 came out, so that's what I'm playing right now. But yeah, so there, check it out, I guess, if you haven't.
You should add eating bacon and playing video games.
I'm subscribing.
I
right
actually have bacon on my plate right now. I haven't eaten yet. So
That's funny.
when we get off stream, I'm probably going to get into that.
Seth, what did you say?
I am subscribing to Ahmnestria right now.
Nice. Picking up some
Oh,
more.
so
She's trying to get to
nice.
50. Did you make it there yet?
Oh, yeah, I'm already an affiliate.
Oh,
Ooh.
affiliate.
Thanks. It's new. I've only been an affiliate for today's my second stream as an affiliate.
Nice. Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
I
All
forgot
right.
there's a noise when you subscribe.
You guys, thanks for being on. And yeah, let's head out.
All right.
Bye,
Everybody
everyone.
have a great night. Thank
Have
you
a good
for
night,
watching,
folks.
everybody.